So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology, and welcome to my Samsung Galaxy A54 full review. Now in this video, we're going to talk about it in detail, and by the end of this video, you're going to know if this is the phone for you, the Samsung Galaxy A54. Also, if you ordered it or you plan on picking it up by the end of this content, you're going to know everything about it, if this is really something you want to buy or you want to skip out on. So let's begin by talking about the price point. So you can find this phone for $449 to $499. Now, if you want to see or hear about more carrier pricing, check out my unboxing video. I talk more about that there. Keep this in mind though. The Galaxy A54 is a phone that's designed to sell. What that means is that you're often going to see discounts on it. You're going to see carrier subsidies. You're going to see carrier plans, holiday sales. There's going to be a lot of sales on this phone throughout the year. And I would say that there's ways to get this with trade-in for $199. So do not pay $449 or $499 for this phone. Even though it's probably worth $400 or so, I still think you should find a way to use one of those plans, one of those deals, one of the trade-ins, and get a steal of a deal on this phone, because that's really what this phone is designed for, I feel like. Now, Galaxy A54 right here. What are the key specifications that you really need to pay attention to? This does have a 6.4-inch flat display. It's a 1080 by 2340. It's pretty similar to the one on the Galaxy S23 and S23 Plus. However, not quite as bright, not quite as vivid, but it's still quite nice. Very good display overall that Samsung threw in here. It's a Super AMOLED. This is not a dynamic AMOLED display, so do keep that in mind. Now, this is a 120 Hz adaptive display as well. We'll talk more about that later, but we have a triple camera on the rear, 50 megapixels plus 12 megapixels plus a 5 megapixel macro camera. Now, we do also have an Exynos 1380 chipset in here. That is an octa-core CPU, which means that it's on two separate clusters, 4 cores. One is clocked at 2 gigahertz. The second is clocked at 2.4 gigahertz. Now, I had problems with performance with the A53. We'll talk about if this improved later. Now, they also threw in 6 gigabytes of RAM on the 128 gig. You have to go to the 256 to get the 8 gigs of RAM. Also housed inside of this phone is a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, so a pretty darn large battery. You also can get this in 4 colorway options. You can get it in the awesome violet, awesome graphite, awesome lime, and awesome white. However, keep in mind in the US market, if that's where you're picking this up at, it comes in graphite and the violet. In other markets, you can get it in white and lime, or if you want those colors, you can order them, unlocked, but you'll have to find them third party. In carriers, I'm seeing this in graphite and violet. So those were the key specifications that really matter. What about the body, the build, the design quality of this phone? Now, I've been really putting my finger around this over the weekend, and I can tell you that this is essentially a Galaxy S23 light kind of phone. They're using, similar design, but they're using cheaper materials. So and I'm not mad at that because it still looks and feels nice. So around the edges, it kind of resembles aluminum. It actually looks exactly like aluminum, but it feels like plastic. So if you feel a polished premium aluminum Samsung phone, this feels a little cheaper. However, most people are going to put it in the case. On the back, it does have glass. However, I'm not upset with that either, because this gives you some good grip if you use the phone without a case. If you do use it with a case, you're going to get grip anyway, but I think the glass looks quite nice on the back here. And then we do have ourselves triple camera. Now, some people say this is plastic, but I think it's Gorilla Glass 5 on the back, and then we have glass on the front here. So definitely nice overall design. Now, there is one phone I think this most resembles. If I'm being quite honest with you, I've been thinking about it. Which phone does this really resemble? I think it resembles an iPhone 12. If you've seen the purple iPhone 12, look at the vertical cameras, glass sandwich design, aluminum looking edges. This is a real aluminum phone, but I'm just saying, of all the phones I've looked at, this really resembles an iPhone 12 in my opinion, which is not a bad thing. You didn't pay $200 for an iPhone 12 with a trade-in, did you? So no, you didn't. Now, also what's nice about this phone is that even though it has a large display, it has a light build. Of course, you're going to get a lighter build with this plastic frame here. Now this build is only around 202 grams, so right around the weight of a 14 Plus, which I raved about it being a really nice, comfortable size. Now, this phone also does have IP67 dust and water resistance, so not the IP68 you'll find on the larger phones, but taking a look at these sides here, I do like where they placed the power button. It's in a good location. Fingerprint natural. Right here we do have a volume rocker. On the bottom, you'll see a very clean USB-C charging, microphone hole there. You do have a speaker grill there. On the left side, just super clean, minimal, nothing there. And at the top, you'll find yourself the micro SD card slot, and it does have the SIM card tray in there. No eSIM forcing here, another microphone hole. On the back, there's the camera lenses, and there's the flash. Now, the camera lenses do stick off the body a little bit, so you will want a case if you don't want to damage those. However, I've been throwing this phone around with no case. I haven't got any scratches so far, so durability seems pretty good. But if you're the type of person who wants to super protect your phone, or you plan on upgrading this later and getting a good trade-in deal, I would definitely consider doing that for this phone, because it will definitely scratch up over repeated usage without a case. So do keep that in mind. So overall, design and build quite nice. The punch hole is also pretty small, like what you'll find on the more premium Samsung phones. Now, I don't think it's quite as nice as the phones that don't have no punch holes, like some of those ZTE phones have under display cameras, but it's still a lot cleaner, I think, and a lot less distracting than something like Dynamic Island on iPhones. Now, one thing that's pretty noticeable is the bezels. The chin on here is substantial compared to the newer Samsung Galaxy S23s, which have minimal to no bezels. And this is going to be a big trend, I think, going forward, is minimal to no bezels, maybe all screens before they, that's probably going to be the next thing that's going on. I've seen rumors that the 14 Pro is going to have super, or 15 Pro is going to have super thin bezels, but this one kind of reminded me of some of those older Android phones with a chin. And then on the side here, you'll find thicker bezels than before. However, when you kind of look at this phone, you don't really look at it too much. You kind of forget about it after a few days. It's just when you compare it to a premium phone, it's noticeable. Is it a deal breaker? No way ever, because this phone's price point, I really do not care. I'm just pointing out everything that I noticed about this phone because this is a full review. So overall, design quality, the look, the feel, to me overall, it feels substantial. It feels like a nice premium phone with a cheaper, quality frame around it. So it's kind of a mashup between a premium and a cheap phone. It's a good value. Let's just put it that way. So what have I really noticed about the display since getting this phone? Well, first of all, it gets plenty bright, up to 1,000 nits. And I really noticed this outdoors. It was easy to see. You don't find a lot of phones at this price giving you 1,000 nits. This is really beating the Pixel 6a when it comes to brightness. Also, you get the same features you'll find on a premium Samsung phone, like Eye Comfort Shield, the extra dim mode, the dark mode. So Samsung is not skimping on display. They're known for being some of the best, display providers of smartphones, and definitely they're not skimping out on this one either. Now, if we go to display here, you also have the ability to change between adaptive and standard motion. However, I found this phone to not look super smooth without the adaptive motion, so I always kept the adaptive motion section turned on. If I go to standard, it is noticeably different in performance, so I would say stay away from there. Now, I find the natural mode to be quite pleasing to the eye, so I didn't really keep it in vivid mode, although vivid mode is very punchy, although I found it to hurt my eyes after, constant screen use with the vivid mode, so I only turned that on when I really wanted to see some very vivid and saturated content. So I do like that they're providing that. And then also they do have the Eye Comfort Shield. Now there's no enhanced eye comfort like you'll find on the more premium phones, but that's okay. I think that's a feature that'll trickle down to the A series maybe later in an update or something, or maybe in the next version, but it's not here yet. And then of course you have a lot of other display options, but the actual quality of the display is pretty good. It's over 400 pixels per inch, so I really had no issues reading text. Viewing angles are fantastic. It gets plenty bright outside. It feels like a premium display on this phone. And I think you're actually getting more than you would expect for this price point. So Samsung is not cheaping out on display. I really think if you can get this on a deal, you're getting one of the best displays money can buy for this price. So really, really good. I mean, when you compare this to an iPhone SE that's giving you an iPhone 8 display from like 2000, what was it, like the iPhone 7 type of display, there is no comparison. This is absolutely annihilating that display. So this is a really good value here, no issues whatsoever. Now also, you do have the ability to go ahead and use this in a landscape rotation. If you go to the home screen and settings, scroll down, you'll find an ability to rotate the landscape right here, and that's good. That's really nice. Also, Samsung takes advantage of giving you this larger display by including the edge features as well as multitasking. In addition to that, this display also gets pretty darn dim, so you'll really like that as well at nighttime. It was able to get super dim, which I do like. You don't want it too bright at nighttime. It's just really, that's pretty darn good as well. Now, the size of the display also in notes, let's go to notes here. Let's go over here, done. Now, the size of the display makes the keyboard typing experience on this panel pretty good as well. Hey, what's up? This is the Galaxy A54. So that's also pretty good for this panel. And watching content on here was nice. Bumps, obviously, not as premium, but bigger and looks about like the same. And Samsung has provided you with a wider aspect ratio, which more matches up to like iPhones and stuff like that. Also, the other Samsung phones that came out since the S22 models. I complained before about their narrow field aspect ratio, meaning the content was kind of squished into the, it was more narrow. Let's just put it that way. I like this wider display. It's more useful. And it makes smaller phones feel larger. Like this 6.4 inch phone, if you're not really paying attention, it could feel almost like a 6.7 inch device. So that's what I really like about it. But the only thing noticeable is that chin on white backgrounds. Again, it will fade out of your consciousness when you're not really paying attention. But when you're looking on video and we're actually looking at it, you can see it. Again, remember the price point. You're not paying $900 to have ultra thin bezels, the top of the line smartphone. So you have to make some sacrifices. But the punch hole doesn't really get in the way too much of the content. Also, there's one last thing I wanted to mention about the display here. I know I'm going on and on about it, but you have the ability to change between different navigation settings on this panel. So you have this navigation bar right here. You can hide this gesture. I like to leave it there, so I know where it's at. I mean, I know where it's at anyway, but I just kind of like to leave it there. I have buttons. So if you like the older Android style buttons, you can have those. You got your options here. So options, quality, and more options. That's the name of the game here with the Galaxy A54 display. The only sacrifice, again, and it's not really a sacrifice, it's just kind of something you notice compared to premium phones, is the bezels. That's about it. So in terms of the software, we are running basically, again, the same thing you'll find on the Galaxy S23 models. You're getting the One UI 5.1 combined with Android 13. And the software, I gotta say, is awesome. You're getting a phone that feels like I'm using the same thing I use on more premium Samsung phones. You know, you have the Galaxy Store, you have the Google ecosystem along with the Samsung ecosystem. Now, if you have Samsung Galaxy Buds, you have Samsung laptops, these things work pretty well together. Now, I will say there's one downside to this phone. There's no Samsung DeX. And that kind of makes sense because this isn't the most powerful processor. I don't think Samsung wanted to give you a slower experience, hurting their overall, image of this phone. So they did not include Samsung DeX on here. That's my take. That's not what they said. I just feel like that's why they didn't include it, because the chip is not powerful enough to give you a buttery smooth DeX experience. But definitely the phone itself, feature packed, just like the other phones. I will tell you, if you go into the advanced features, you're probably going to find more on the Galaxy S23 Plus. You'll find more. You'll have a whole S Pen section on the Ultra. But for the A54 here, they're still giving you a ton of things, including labs features. So you can go to town, you can have some fun. You got the Galaxy Store. It's all here. They got a ton on offer for you. So don't feel like you're being, not getting most of what you want from a Samsung phone. I think for most of what people use, I got to agree there. For most of what people use, they have it all here on the Galaxy A54 as well. The majority of the software that you actually are going to use. So no extra add-ons, just kind of like everything you would expect from a Samsung phone. It is here. Now I'm going to move on to the section that really needs to be discussed here, and probably the most important discussion, which is performance. But before we talk about performance, just one last thing about software. We will have around 4 years of security, 3 years of major, so do keep that in mind. You might even get 5 on this phone. You got long software support. Just keep that in mind for this phone. Performance, this is the area I've been waiting to talk to you guys about. So during the initial setup, I have to tell you the truth, I experienced 3 to 4 crashes on this phone during initial setup. It took a while for this thing to stay smooth. I don't know what was happening during setup, but some apps I had to re-download twice because they were crashing. It wasn't, let's just put it this way, it wasn't the absolute funnest experience. I actually even made a video about it here. So let me go ahead and show you this video.
Just unboxed this phone, but I'm making this video because
I want you to watch this.
I'm trying to set this phone up and it's locked up already. There's some like static in there. The phone is frozen. Buttons aren't working. And this is why I really don't like Exynos chipsets. Samsung, if you're watching this video, we gotta get some Snapdragon here. We gotta improve the performance on the A series lineup.
So I was definitely very mad on that first day. I decided to forego posting that on shorts because I wanted to give it a fair shot. Every phone can lag up from here and there, but I didn't experience this on the Galaxy S series or the Ultra series, the S Ultra. So I'm talking about the S23s, S23 Ultras. I really haven't experienced that in a couple years on any Samsung phones besides this one and maybe the A53, which was even worse. So this phone is not lag free. There is a potential for lag once in a while. And I will tell you, if you do put on the motion smoothness into standard, this phone downright just feels choppy. So do not put it here if you want a super smooth experience. It just feels laggy when you put it on standard motion. So keep it in the adaptive. It's on by default for a reason. Samsung wants you to experience a smooth working smartphone, and that's pretty good. However, let's dive a little bit deeper into the performance. Now, generally, this phone might look like a Galaxy S23, but it still performs more on par with its price point. So don't expect a phone that's going to perform exactly like an S23. One thing I particularly notice is that animations, they're just not as smooth when you're hopping through it as something like the S23, even with having the 120 hertz. Now, I know you're probably thinking, why are you talking about an S23? Dude, this is a Galaxy A54. And the answer is, it's because that's what I have used, and it's a Samsung phone. That's pretty much it. But honestly, these minor little animations not being the fastest in the world, they don't bother me either. Here's why. After I've been using this for a couple days after initial setup, it kind of worked itself out, and I haven't been having no lag ever since. So I'm pretty happy with that. So maybe it was just all the stuff setting up caused it to hook up a little bit. And I got to tell you, at the end of the day, I'm generally happy with the performance here. It got pretty darn good after the initial setup. Also, I will say it's better than the Galaxy A53 by far. The Galaxy A53 was a mess when it came to performance. So I will give Samsung credit where credit's due. They have been improving the performance on this phone. They did improve the performance. However, it's still not where I want it to be. Considering that we have iPhone SE and Pixel 6a and Pixel 7a coming that are likely going to outperform this phone once again, this phone needs better performance. Samsung, please throw a Snapdragon chip in here or something, or make the Exynos faster. Do something to make this phone just faster. That will really take this thing and blow away the competition. At that point, there's not really much the competition can offer unless the competition people just want the ecosystems that those offer. But in terms of, it's kind of like the S series right now, the S23 series, being that those phones have great performance, all the features. A lot of people are really liking those devices. This one right here, 7 out of 10 in performance. Not underwhelming, not horrible, but there is a potential for some hiccups, some stutter here and there. Overall, though, it does a pretty fine job once you get everything set up. So that's basically all I got to say about performance here. It's been a good experience, not a great one. Now, one thing that's been great and I love is that this phone has a SD card slot. So not only do I get my internal storage of 128 gig, I have the ability, and I added a 256 gig storage card in here. So that's improved as well. So better storage than you can get on some other phones that don't, other Samsung phones that don't even give you an SD card. So that's pretty lame for Samsung not giving us SD card on the premium, but giving us here on the A series. But hey, I'll take it. If you're getting an A series, congratulations. You're getting Samsung's tried and true SD card slot. Other phones have it too, but I'm just saying that's something Samsung used to be known for. Happy it's still here. Now, 6 gigabytes of RAM on board is because I went with 128 gig. I don't really feel like this has affected the performance so much. It's been more the CPU that has affected the performance in my experience. I just find that it's a CPU usually, because I've used Samsung phones with 6 gigs of RAM that had premium processors that were faster. So definitely it's not the RAM. I think it's just the processor Exynos. So it is a little bit of a sacrifice, but not the end of the world. All right, so let's discuss the cameras here in detail. These cameras, they're pretty good actually for what you're paying. Once again, I feel like I have a little bit of a premium flagship phone here. In the camera department, we have portrait modes, fun modes, video modes, and more modes. Samsung giving you the pro video, single take, night mode, food modes, panoramic, it goes on and on. Nice thing about it too, you can bring these modes down here, move them around, customize them. And guess what? All your camera settings are right here within the camera. Also 10 seconds. Now, here's one thing I don't like about the camera. I gotta be honest with you. I don't really like that on the video mode here, we only have the options to go up to UHD 30. Hello, it's Samsung. Hey, what's up? It's 2023. Most phones have 4K 60. Can you please stop giving me a UHD 30? I don't care. I know it's gonna be some discounts, but $500, 4K 60, please. Like, come on, let's get with it. 8K 30, 4K 24. Having those cinematic, type things and having those extra add-ons, I get it. We'll pay extra for the S series, but for the A series, just a basic 4K 30. Come on, let's get with it. Also on the front, what the heck is this? We can only do 4K 30 on the front as well. Where's my 4K 60 on the front? It's 2023 Samsung. I'm paying $500 for a smartphone. Throw in 4K 60. Thank you very much. That's basically my only complaints here. Also, I don't think the macro camera is that useful. You can just throw macro on an ultra wide lens. Why don't we throw in a telephoto lens here? Give this a little bit of zoom. How about this, Samsung? Instead of going 2x optical, why don't we get like a 3x optical, max out at like a 10, a 10x zoom or a 15x digital zoom coming right under the S series that are like 30x. We can go maybe 15 or 20x. Give us some zoom, not quite as much as I get it, not quite as much as the more premium priced phones, but we can do a little bit better than this, I think. The 10X is nice. Overall, I gotta tell you, this phone is feature packed like most Samsung phones. The camera results, I'm gonna show you in a second, have been pretty good. I also like the selfie camera. I think it does a really good job here. And if you like to do social media, you're gonna like it. However, what I will tell you is that this phone's overall camera experience feels like a flagship from like 2 or 3 years ago. So that's a good and a bad thing. The bad thing is that it doesn't really feel like it's pushing the boundaries in any way for a mid-ranger, but it's also good because flagship phones from just a couple years ago or 3 years ago were not horrible. They were really good. So you're overall getting a really solid camera. I call this about a 7.5, 8 out of 10 on a camera. Take a look at my samples. Let me know what you think. And keep in mind too, some flagship phones only have dual cameras. I'm talking to you, Apple 14 Plus 14. So you still get a pretty good value at least having triple. However, this is down one camera from the A53. I don't really care because this gives you everything you need. Although again, I would swap that macro for a telephoto. Let me know if you agree. Check out the samples and let me know your thoughts on them down below. Alright guys, so this is what the Samsung Galaxy A54 looks like on the front-facing video in Full HD 60. This is the audio coming directly from those speakers itself, as well as the video quality coming directly from the phone. So let me know your thoughts on it down below. So here is some 4K 30 footage from the Samsung Galaxy A54. Audio coming directly from the phone itself. You can get an idea of the overall quality. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section of this video. Here is some super steady video with the Galaxy A54. Go ahead and run a little bit, kind of get an idea of how it does perform. I'll swing the phone around kind of quick. See how stable it stays. And how about a zoom? No zooming in this. So there's no capabilities of zooming and super steady.
All right, so let's talk about one of the most fun things to talk about here, the battery life. Now, I just charged it up for this video. Samsung's predicting 2 days and 22 hours left with the type of usage we're doing right now. I don't know if you've been paying attention to that battery percentage throughout this video. I've been recording this video for about 20 minutes already. That thing's only went down 2%. This thing sips battery life. And that's why having a slower processor and having, not as quite as sharp of a panel, the things I basically complain about a little bit in this video actually make up for it in the battery life. This phone easily lasts all day. The only time that I really found it was draining is when I blasted the brightness at 1000 nits, was doing 4K video outside, really pushing it to its max. That's when the battery really, heated up quite a bit. Also, during performance, when you are playing games like Asphalt, you're playing more premium games, I should mention this as well since we're talking about battery, it will drain the battery a little bit. And this phone does get a little bit warm when really pushing those games. But the funny thing is that you could still play these high-end games. Even though this is not a high-end Samsung phone, it's still usable. It still works pretty darn well. Not a bad experience whatsoever. It just gets a little warm. So I would recommend a case if you want a little bit of more comfort when playing games. Battery life, though, I found that, when you are using it day to day, it just sips it. Now, when you are talking about standby time, they've improved this as well. All the One UI 5.1 phones have gotten better when it comes to the sipping of battery life when it comes to standby. So that's pretty good as well. It doesn't charge the fastest out there, 25 watts, but that's still better than some other phones. And it's not reverse wireless charging. This is not the highest end out there. Keep that in mind. But battery life is pretty solid. I would not be needing no charger when I go out with this one. Power saving modes would get you even more battery life. However, you're going to suffer with performance with that a little bit. So do keep that in mind. On the whole, this one is a definite go when it comes to battery life. Very happy there. Now, audio quality, it's not going to blast your eardrums. It's not super loud, but it's workable. It's got pretty good bass.
A competitor to this as well, the Pixel 6a. The true competitors
It doesn't sound too far from a flagship.
coming soon in the Pixel 7a, but I still want to show it because this is what is out now. I think this.
I mean, just getting this kind of audio quality. I remember when the cheaper A series only had one speaker. It's nice, man. It's just a nice upgrade. So a couple other things before we wrap up this video I want to talk about, and that is the connectivity. USB 2.0, so not the latest standards out there, not 3. We don't have the fastest transfer speeds, but it's still USB-C. Fingerprint underneath display has been pretty perfect. I found the face unlock surprisingly misses more than on my S20 models. I don't know why. It's still using a camera, but it's missed me more on this phone. Fingerprint, though, also wasn't quite as accurate as the S models, but it was still pretty good. Bluetooth 5.3, Wi-Fi 6, no 6E on here, so you're not having those latest standards. And I gotta say, in terms of the phone call quality, this has also been very good. I found pretty much full strength, and I was using Mint Mobile to test this phone. Pretty full bars pretty much everywhere I went. People heard me. I had no dropped calls. 5G on here, remember, 5G. So you are set up for the future. If you're coming from one of those older A series phones, a cheaper A series without 5G, you're going to be good here. And the last thing before I give you my final conclusion on this device is you know, this phone is not going to be a really good trade-in unless you go for the next A series model. You're not going to get a lot on the resale. So you buy this phone to use it. It's not a phone you buy thinking, oh, I'm going to go buy this and get so much money back on it. This is not an S series. This is not a Z series. Doesn't make it a bad phone. It just means this is not no investment type phone where you can, you know, at least get, no phones are investments, but you can at least get something back, a good sizable amount. This is not a flagship grade phone. So keep that in mind. You buy this phone to use this phone. That's what it is. It's a phone to be used. It's not a phone to just buy and, oh, I'm going to sell my iPhone or I'm going to sell my S series phone for $800, $900 next year. Nope, that's not this one. Sorry, not this one. And my final conclusion is in the Galaxy A54. This phone feels like a near flagship phone, but it reminds you that it's not, with all the not the having the highest end specs on the market. It really reminds you that this is not Samsung's best. However, what it does do is it has pretty good features, pretty good performance, pretty good everything, good display, better performance in the A54, OLED. It's going to work well for the average consumer for sure. The person buying this knows this going in, that this is not going to be top-end Samsung, but it performs better than budget Samsungs of the past years. Those were really laggy. This one's not really that, although it does have the capability to lag sometimes and stutter sometimes. Do keep that in mind. I think this easily beats the iPhone SE currently. The current SE easily beats that. I'm a little concerned for it when Apple launches their next SE, which is rumored to be a bigger display. But for now, easily beating that phone. We'll have to see what the 7A brings. Solid offering from Samsung. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I think they can get a perfect score if they improve the performance, throw on a little bit better cameras in terms of video at 4K 60 and having, you know, better zooming cameras. So they could zoom a little bit more, give us a faster processor. It doesn't even have to be the highest end, but a faster like Snapdragon processor in here. You'll get a 10 out of 10 for me if we can do that. But for now, 8 out of 10. It's solid. It's a solid offering. And I don't think you're going to be disappointed if you know what you're going into with this phone. That's it for me. Samsung Galaxy A54. Are you picking one up? Are you not? Are you done with this phone? I'm pretty much done with my review here. So, yeah, I don't got much else to say.